Welcome to another edition of Fall Rise Give. I'm bartender Bob. That's Kumar. We are in season 3, episode I think 5 already of this of the new season. Kumar, thanks for being a part of the show, and thanks for joining us this morning. And I should say this: it doesn't have to be morning; it can be any time of the day that you're listening. But that's the nice thing about these podcasts, Kumar, is that you have the chance to listen anytime throughout the day, night. If you're busy doing work, if you're driving in your car, if you're doing anything that you want, you can pop it on and listen to it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Podcasts, that's why they're so popular. I think audiobooks are popular for the same reason, but podcasts have really come on their own, and they really make it enjoyable for you to be able to take your free time. I think radio business has got hurt a lot from that.
I think so, too.
I think so. I think the only thing this radio is good for now is talk radio. From a sports or from a politics standpoint.
You know, the thing, it's funny because I did talk radio for a lot of years, and I did music radio as well. And you're right about the whole, the talking part, you can be engaged in it. The listening part, you've got your phones, and you can listen to anything that you want at any moment, which makes life so much different. I remember, like, when you and I were kids, and I'm speaking on my own behalf, of course, but I remember sitting, listening to the radio with my play and record button on my fingers on the cassette deck in order to record something, to listen to that song so I could hear it a second time or a third time or whatever. And, missing it because a DJ talked over the front of it or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you got it and you're like, yes. And now kids nowadays don't understand what that's even all about.
Kids nowadays have everything on their fingertips. They just type in a search word in Google or Apple or wherever, and they get things at the fingertip, which is, that's the beauty of progress too. There's so much available to us. That's why diversity of thought and, just anything, music, you name it, podcasts, movies. You can stream movies now within a weeks of them coming out in the theater. It's a beautiful thing. It really connects people, gives them freedom, but it can also be a double-edged sword, I think, too. It gets people hooked on their phones too much.
Oh, I agree.
That's why you got to take a little break sometimes and not be so tied to the technology.
Well, that's funny because us talking about this kind of ties in with what we're with the chakra this time, the throat chakra, the communication chakra, which I think that sometimes I think our communications is a lot better than it used to be, and other times I look around and I think our communication is a lot less than it used to be. And hear me out on this, because working at the bar sometimes, I look around and I see people and I hear people talking to each other. They're there, they're in the moment, they're with each other, they're being a part of the everyday and the here and the now. And then I look over and I see other people on their phones texting and doing whatever and making the kissy faces or whatever they're doing in order to send that form of communication to somebody else. And so, they're communicating with the phone, and then they're communicating with their mouth, and they're communicating with their eyes and their ears. And so, I don't know, man. Kumar, I'm not sure if I think that communication is better now or worse now than it used to be. It's different now than it used to be, but it's still communication, correct?
Yeah, and many, many different ways to communicate nowadays. And I think people don't like to call each other on the phone as much. That's true for me. I rather just text people. I do everything on my phone. And so I'm kind of strange in that new generation as well, even though I'm not part of the new generation. But I text, and I don't like talking to people too much. So it's surprising to me that I actually am talking on a podcast, because I rather just write stuff down and communicate my thoughts that way. Allows me to edit in real time and pause and all of that. With talk radio, you're kind of vulnerable as well, or talk podcast. But yeah, communication has definitely changed. I think it's different. It can be better. It's like any tool. If you utilize it to the best of your abilities, you can communicate with people all over the world. I've got cousins all over the world. I've got family all over the world. Yesterday was homecoming in Chicago for my niece and nephew. I got to see their pictures through text messages, not just on Facebook, before it got to Facebook. And yeah, technology can bring people together. I feel I'm not tied to my phone, even though I do a lot of work on Facebook with our spiritual mindset group. Little shameless plug there. But yeah, so I spend a lot of time communicating and through the globe, really. And yeah, I love it. I don't think I'm a prisoner to technology. I think I utilize it really, really well.
I want to ask you a question based on what you said about you're not tied to your phone, because some days I feel like I am, other days I don't. When I'm at work, when I'm behind the bar being a bartender and doing my main job, my phone is in my pocket my entire time. The only time I answer it is if my parents or my children call. That's the only time I ever answer my phone. But when I'm not working, I am on my phone nonstop. In conversation, I try to put it down like when Monique and I have conversation. But I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, well, let me just look at one more thing on Facebook. Let me just look at one more reel. Let me just do, you know what I mean? And so I
Yeah.
really feel like I'm sometimes a prisoner to my own technologies, to the technologies that's in hand,
Yeah. And I think this is where the inner dialogue, the inner voice, as I mentioned in my book, if people read it, and the chapter on opening up the throat chakra, the key there really is about the inner dialogue and how you communicate with yourself. And then you measure yourself in saying, hey, I'm with someone. I don't want to be on my phone. Or I'm alone waiting for someone, then I can be on my phone. But
hmm
utilizing technology, I think it's a mental game, really. It's you knowing when you're addicted and when you're not addicted. When you're leveraging it to your benefit, great. If not, hey, maybe it's time to put it down.
And that's something we need to learn. I think that it seems like the cell phone companies are coming out with new technologies to help you to put your phone down, which seems counterintuitive that they would have you do that. But I think that if you're addicted to it, there's going to be some federal mandates, and they probably don't want any of that. You know what I mean? So they're probably trying to curb some of that use now rather than wait for the government to step in. So I'm looking through some of the notes that you had sent about the show this time, and we're talking the throat chakra. And I thought it was kind of weird that it's so funny because last week we were talking about the heart chakra, and we talked about my granddaughter having open heart surgery, and that was kind of tied in. By the way, she is doing better, which is excellent.
Great.
But this week we're talking about the throat chakra, and the last few days I've had a sore throat, Kumar. I've had a cough, I've cold, so I haven't been able to go up to the hospital to visit lately. But it's funny how these things that we're talking about are things that are actually tied to a specific point in my life, which is weird.
Yeah, I think in all of our lives, right? For me, this week, I was listening to a podcast on emotions and how you manage emotions and what are emotions. And I think for me as well, I wasn't planning on listening to this podcast, but then I realized, hey, emotions have a huge deal to do with communication. If you're feeling angry, you're not going to say the softest, kindest things to people. You
No,
know,
not at all.
not at all, right? And if you're feeling sad or depressed, you're probably not going to want to talk to people at all. You're going to be closed in your throat chakra and you're going to feel down. So, really, emotions play a huge part in our communications. So, emotional intelligence is a thing. I think a guy wrote a book on it. I don't remember his name. But the key part, they say that he says that 80% of success is emotional intelligence rather than IQ. I don't know if I buy that. I think smart people do succeed. I think you have to have some level of emotional intelligence. And what is emotional intelligence? It really is self-awareness. It's awareness
Mhm.
of what's around you and what's around other people and read the room. And you and I are pretty good at emotional management and communication because we read the room, we read the audience, we read what's going on around us. And maybe it's because old age, I don't know, but
I think it is because I don't know about your kids, but like my kids are sarcastic like I am,
yeah.
and I listen to them around other people, because we'll be in specific situations where they're around talking to other people, and I don't think that they have learned how to read the room yet. And I think that's one of the things that does come with age, as you mentioned, because I mean we're in our mid-50s now. I'm in my late 50s, but we've lived that much of a life in order to understand that this might not be the time to say this, or this might not be the time to bring this thing up, whereas somebody that's young just might go ahead and blurt it out, or be inappropriate at times without trying to be, but they are because they don't know exactly what's going on around the room.
And I remember when growing up and in college, they said, what's the number one skill to get a job, or what's the number one skill to be successful? And it always came down to communication. They always said your communication skills were really critical. And I had a big lesson in that when I was in college. This woman came and gave the graduation speech, and she blew our socks off with the stories about life is like a painting. Many paintings. There's a painting for your high school. There's a painting for your adolescence. There's a painting for your college career. And she talked about all the different experiences and how it makes up this beautiful art piece. And she just went on and on about describing life in different stages. And she literally had us on the floor. We're like, wow, that's amazing. And I look closer to her. I'm like, that's Sarah. That's that shy girl from freshman year at the parties, right? She wouldn't talk to anybody. And then I later learned, and we've talked about it on the show, she was the president of Toastmasters Club. She learned to public speak and she learned to communicate in a really amazing way. And so communication is a very powerful tool. And so ability to communicate your thoughts, your intelligence, your experiences, your authenticity to build relationships with people. It applies in personal relationships. It applies in professional relationships. It applies in your own self-talk, in your self-relationship. Self-talk is a big thing as well. So communication within, communication through the person outside of you or people outside of you can really get blocked by our emotions, by our throat chakra. And that's where the energy from the heart comes up, right? Or comes down from the spiritual crown chakra. And so you have to manage your emotions to be able to communicate in a calm, centered way. And there are tools and tricks for opening that up and ability to do that. So yeah, we'll talk more about that as we go along. But you can see communication is a very powerful tool to get what you want in life.
I remember as a kid, I used to get picked on a lot when we were kids. And
same here.
I remember my mom always telling me the thing that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words may never hurt me. And, you know, I remember saying that back and forth in my head when somebody was giving me a hard time about this, that, or the other thing, you know, slobby bobby or whatever, you know, whatever stupid things kids might say. And, you know, I remember saying that to myself, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. And I said it a lot of times throughout my life. And then as I got older and as I got to be quicker witted and more sarcastic and more, I don't know if mean is the thing, because I don't think I'm mean, but I am very sharp tongued, if that makes any sense. I found myself in a situation where somebody said, you know, that really hurt that you'd say that. And I stepped back from what I said and I'm like, the little nursery rhyme that my mom always said, sticks and stones can break my bones and words never hurt me, was in my head. And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, no, man, words do hurt. Words can hurt. Words can be very detrimental to somebody and to their ability to gain acceptance, to learn new things, it basically shuts somebody down. If somebody says you're a stupid idiot and you look up to them, you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe I am a stupid idiot, or maybe I'm not worthy of this project, or maybe I'm not worthy of this love from this person, or maybe I'm not, you know. And when somebody starts saying things like that, then you start to self-doubt, and when you start to self-doubt, then eventually you'll doubt that you're worthy of doing something. So words, even though our parents told us that they didn't mean anything, they do mean something.
Words mean a lot. You know, I don't necessarily want to bring in this Bible thing because I'm so open-minded to other cultures. And, but I find myself bringing these things up. So I'll do it. I'm going to a yoga meditation after this recording, and which is very spiritual and very Hindu centric, and international people are there. Hardly any Indians are there, which is surprising to me. But I don't go to church very often. But I want to bring this thing up because, like you said, words do hurt people and can hurt people. It can hurt yourself as well because it can destroy relationships in a matter of seconds. In the Bible, the book of James is a small book. James is supposedly the brother of Jesus. I don't know if he is or isn't, but that's what it says in the Bible he is, so I'm going to take their word for it. He says, and he talks about communication, and the tongue can be as sharp as a sword. Be careful of what you say. Be careful of the words. So I can't quote a Bible verse, but I know the book of James is my favorite book in the Bible because it talks about communication, and it talks about words, and it talks about words can cut like a sword. And the words that we use can destroy relationships in a matter of seconds. In my book, I talk about an email. I don't know if you read that or not, but I talk about an email I sent at Microsoft that hurt me. And instead of being a bridge to communication to my team, I kind of separated out our internal team. I worked at Microsoft as a senior manager. I think you and I did a podcast. I was on your show, on the radio show back then when I was working at Microsoft at one point, like 20 some years ago. And what I did, so there was a situation where a major food company out of Chicago had wanted to advertise on the Microsoft network, MSN and MSNBC and all of that stuff. And I worked in the advertising department, and they wanted some special concessions or special treatment. It's a major food company. It was a multi-million-dollar campaign, and we were going to allow them to do something from the sales side. But from the operational standpoint, this guy, I think I call him Jerry in the book. That's not his real name. He was a blocker all along the way. And every time we think of a creative solution, he would shoot it down. And finally, we came up with a solution that worked for him and his team and for our team. And we ended up being successful. And then one of the executives sent an email saying, "Hey, great job, everybody. Great job on this campaign, launching the client. I know it was tough, blah, blah, blah." And then they thanked Jerry for his success or his part in playing in this thing. And I just about had it. I was like, what the? Jerry was the biggest blocker to this thing. So I hit reply all, and I said, Jerry was the biggest blocker. I can't believe we're thanking him for it. It's actually Susan that did all the work and fought through and did the details and blah, blah, blah. And I replied all. It went to all the executives and everybody. And I was just a senior manager. I wasn't an executive at the time. And so sure enough, the word got out. But what they looked at, my manager came up to me, my executive, and said, "Hey, Vipin, I know you wanted to give Susan the credit, but you shouldn't have said anything negative about Jerry." But I'm like, Jerry was the one who was blocking the whole deal. It took forever. And so he's like, "Yeah, we know, but things just take time." And so that's when I realized, and that stood with me. He's like, you know what? Before you hit send to all, before you hit something in writing, be very careful of what your intentions are. And at that point, my intention was to be right. Instead of building a bridge, I created a divide between Jerry and his team and my team. And so that didn't help anything from a business professional standpoint. But anyway, so it's a lesson that I've carried with me for the last 15, 20 years. I think that was about 15 years ago that I worked there at that time. But yeah, be very careful in written communication, especially like email and text, of what you say, because it can really, words have power. They can cut through a sword and really hurt someone.
Absolutely. So have you ever done any improv training at all?
No, I know you have. Let's talk about that.
So because we always learn in improv to say yes and. So I mean,
yes.
And you said that when you sent that, it kind of put a block to it, and that's immediately where my mind went, is to the whole improv thing, that when you are communicating with somebody, you try to add to the communication or add to the story by saying yes and that helps to build the blocks to make a better story and make a better product. And when you said that your friend Jerry, or not your friend, but your coworker Jerry, kept blocking things, I noticed that in my years of doing radio and all the meetings and things that we went to, we did a lot of brainstorming meetings over the years of doing, trying to create things for people and create platforms for people in their advertising. That brainstorming is like, there's no bad ideas. So, I mean, if somebody was shooting them down, you just need to tell them, Jerry, it's okay. It's okay for you to not like these ideas. Just sit back and just sit on your hands for a minute and listen to what these things have to say. So I think that with him, his communication was blocked off. So he needed to have the skills, the improv skills, for one, to listen and say yes and secondly, to listen to what was being said and hoping to find something out of the things that people had brought to the table, rather than him saying no to everything. Does that make any sense at all?
We learned this in executive training when I worked at this powerhouse IT advisory company called Gartner. If you're a business person, you're reading this, and you're an executive listening to this, you would know what Gartner is. It's the most powerful IT consulting company. And they have 1,000 analysts plus, and they work with chief information officers and executives of tech companies all the time. And one of our biggest things was to use and. So repeat what somebody just said. And if you disagree, say, and I think XYZ. I don't
Uh-huh.
necessarily think and agree with you in ABC. And I think a lot of people use but. You said ABC, but.
But is a negative, man, and adds to the story, but stops the story right there.
But stops the story right there. And however, same thing. However, whatever you're saying, however, this is XYZ. So yeah, I think it's important to communicate with the word and. I hear you, and I may not agree, and I think we should look at it from this perspective. So I think this yes and is a really good tool for people in communication. If we can give you just one tool in communication today and listen to the podcast, use the word and in your communication when you're listening to somebody. Don't use the word but. That's enough power tool for communication. That's one of the, I had no idea that we're going to talk about this today, but that is the most powerful tool, is to build bridges with people in communication and build relationships. Use and, don't use but. Don't butt somebody out.
Kumar, what are some experiences that you've had that has been difficult for you to express yourself? You do a lot more meetings than I do. My meetings are one-on-one with somebody in between ordering drinks. Your meetings are with groups of people, that have that are doing stuff for work.
Yeah, no, agreed, and that's okay. So I have a lot of meetings with executives, and so there are really smart people, people smarter than me, by and large. I don't think I'm dumb by any means. I think I'm smart enough, can hold my own. And I get in these situations where people talk and they take the conversation so far direct away from the theme of that meeting, it's hard to bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes skillful to say, yes, let's talk about that. And I've got this presentation piece that we're working on. And let me go get the data. I don't know the answer to your question there. And the theme of this meeting is this right now. We can solve for that later at a different time or a different meeting. Let me follow up with you on this thing. So I find at this particular company that I'm working for and with, a lot of executives bring up their own personal interest in the meeting, as they should to a certain degree. And I wish they were more collaborative and looking at, there's a time and a place when you bring up your personal needs versus the objective of the meeting and what people are trying to say. So I have marketing, sales, finance, operations, technology. They all come with their own perspectives, which is understandable. And they sometimes take the direction of, hey, my issue is this. It may not have anything to do with the meeting, but my issue is this. So that's something that, even though they're executives, I don't think they have the right level of communication skills or self-awareness to be able to talk and accomplish this. What I would rather have them do is to say, hey, there's an issue topic about this. If this is not related to the meeting, we can discuss it offline, but it's important to me that we talk about XYZ as well, not just ABC. So so there's a lot of tools that I have to use. I have to listen, I have to pause, I have to answer questions. And sometimes, and like I think it was last Monday, somebody asked me a question and I said, I just don't know. I'll go ahead and research and find out, but I don't know. And that was a big thing for me to be able to say, I don't know.
I think that those are the most powerful words that you could use right there. I don't know. Because that shows that you don't know everything. And I think that a lot of times people try to give the perception that I am your one and only person that you need. BS. Those are my initials right there. BS.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Let me find out. Let me do some research and get back to you. I mean, that to me, that shows me, Kumar, that you're on the next level.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to fight through or fake your way through something.
Exactly. I don't like the words fake it till you make it. I think you got to be very self-aware where you are, what you know and what you don't know. You got to have confidence in what you know, and you got to have confidence in saying, you know what? I don't know, but I'll go find the answer. I'll know it. I'll talk to people. I'll do the background work and I'll get back to you on this. And so at this particular time, maybe it's my mistake. I should have covered it. And I didn't. So my apologies. I will go back and do the work to be able to go find that information and provide it to you. So I have to do that a lot. I went through a lot of self-awareness and a lot of self-doubt a year ago in my job. And I came out with a lot of inner confidence and trust and overcoming fear by literally staying present, by actually listening to the tools that I talk about through acceptance, through desire, wanting a better outcome, all of these things, having trust in a higher power, being compassionate towards smart people, realizing that, hey, they weren't attacking me. They were just looking at their self interest. They were listening to the WII-FM channel, which is what's in it for me. People are always listening to that channel and to try to tap into that. So, yeah, I think that was really important. And we should talk a little bit more about some of the things on emotional intelligence. And before we go, so we gave you a tool of use and instead of but. We gave you a tool of I don't know, which is really important to be able to say. And then the biggest thing that I can tell you is start with emotional awareness. Be very careful where you are emotionally before you communicate. If you're not in a good mood, if you're in a depressed mood, or if you're in an anger mood, all the way the range of emotions, be very careful of communicating. It's better to be silent almost 100% of the time than to say the wrong thing. So if somebody puts you on the spot, say, I don't know, I'm not in the right space. Be confident enough to be able to say your feelings, to say, I'm not in the right place for this. I'll get back to you on it. So being very emotionally aware is a great tool. They say in that same thing that I just said, self-regulate before you express yourself. Self-management, right? What is it going to take you to get in that great mood? I get into these executive meetings and I get anxious sometimes. I go for a walk. I'll do a little mantra. I'll do a little prayer. And then I'll go in that meeting saying, you know what? Totally present. Whatever happens, happens. They're going to take it to different directions. They're always going to do that. And just be with it. All I can do is control myself. That's where the acceptance part of it comes in. And then the biggest thing that I think is really important that helped me in the last year is having empathy. Deeply having empathy for somebody else. Not only are they listening to the WIIFM channel, try to tap into that. Try to tap what's in it for them. What are they looking for? How can you help them? Be compassionate about it. In a one-on-one relationship, that's really important. In a group relationship, what does the group collectively need? What does that individual executive want? So having empathy, really deep down, social awareness of what's going on, that's critical. And then the last one, I think, is speak the truth with compassion. People, when they say speak the truth, don't be blunt to a level where you don't know what you're saying and you're going to use your sword, your tongue as a sword and cut through and hurt someone. Speak the truth with compassion. That's really the key to relationship management and relationship building. Speak your truth, be authentic. Being authentic is really when you open up your throat chakra. When you feel like you can't say something, that is where we get stuck and blocked and we can't do what we say we're going to do. And that's when it hurts our feelings, when we aren't able to express ourselves. So opening up the throat chakra really is all about having compassion and speaking our truth, but in a compassionate way. Speak your truth. Say, I feel XYZ. Don't blame it on somebody else. Use the I word. I feel XYZ. I think this XYZ. I believe XYZ. And as long as you can voice your thing in a compassionate way, people will hear you out. And once they hear you out, even if they don't hear you out, the fact that you expressed it yourself is huge. So those are the four of the tools that I just mentioned. One, again, is start with emotional awareness. Don't do anything stupid when you're mad, angry, or sad. Second, regulate yourself before you express. Go for a walk, do a prayer, meditation, whatever it is. Have deep empathy, and then speak your truth. So those are the four tools that I can give you.
And don't be afraid to embrace your voice.
Exactly. Fear we talked about in the last podcast, right? And know that if you use the I word and you communicate, I feel XYZ, don't be afraid to say that. people are so afraid to voicing their opinions. And then there's other people who are very direct and they voice their opinions all the time. And those people tend to go around and not be as good at a relationship. Being authentic is what some research, some TEDx talk that I was listening to, this guy said, being authentic is more powerful energy than even love in the world. Being authentic in a compassionate way is a very powerful vibrational spiritual energy. I find people who are vulnerable, people who are honest, people who are authentic tend to go a long ways in attracting others' thoughts, others' relationships. So being authentic, like you said, don't be afraid to be authentic. Just do it in a compassionate way.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit our website at www.fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.